Today I'm going to try to talk about the collective memory, Mandela Effect, and the Berenstain Bears. I know it's an ambitious episode. I know that you have heard about the Mandela Effect. It is the conspiracy theory about, it kind of connects quantum physics with the concept of how a collective memory can be misremembered by so many people that it actually shifts the universe and the environment and creates in quantum physics concepts, creates like an alternate parallel universe that now we all live in with a different memory of a situation or instance. Now, that is what it's called for a lot of different reasons, but there's also a thing called the Berenstain Bear effect. If you're in a certain age range, which is my age, this is my birthday week, so I don't know when this is going to be posted. I'm kind of just recording 20 videos at once. I am 42 years old this week, okay? So in my age range, there were books called the Berenstain Bears, and I honestly always thought they were the Berenstain Bears. I have theories about this because if you got there's like this mother goose kind of duck that talked, and you could put in little carts like cassettes, and she would tell different stories. And I kind of mixed those up with the Berenstain Bears. And so I'm thinking there must have been something that had like a Steen or Berenstein or something, maybe with the mother goose duck. I'm not sure. That would have made me think it was Berenstein instead of Berenstein. Even now, when I look at the book covers, when I look at anything with it, I believe that it's misspelled when I see Berenstain with the S-T-A-I-N. I think it's Berenstein. I believe with all my heart that I grew up reading the Berenstain Bears. I don't think that's true, because if you look at who actually wrote the book, it's the Berenstains. Why would they call themselves Berenstain Bears when their name is the Berenstain, the actual writers, the author's last name? But this brings us to the concept of quantum physics and the idea that if you remember something or if you change something, I mean, there's a lot of aspects to quantum physics, but there are parallel universes and alternate realities that we shift into. You can shift the entire universe and how things are going with actions with one thing. And I believe that you can think of something just like quantum physics says, and it will be where you look. Things will always be where you look for them, which is why things are found and why hypotheses are found oftentimes when it might not necessarily be scientifically sound. I do wonder if this Mandela effect actually exists in some way, and it really is just based on the collective memory of people. There is the government conspiracies about how they want to change everyone's belief or memory in certain things. I believe that could be the case. But why would the government want you to say Berenstain Bears instead of Berenstein? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. What would the end game be for that? I can understand the government wanting to make you believe something different about a lot of things, but I'm not sure about that book. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I really do want to talk about the collective conscious. I think that the whole world remembers things together and individually. And so when enough people remember something a certain way, it's just how you remember it. If you hear it enough a certain way, because our memories, I feel, are malleable as humans. So you can write a history book and it's not changing unless you change the words. But in our heads, it changes. Our thoughts, our memories, they're changing, and they change based on the culture around us, based on what other people have said around us. Knowing all of that, I do believe that when we deal with IP, like Love Story, there is a TV show. You've probably heard of it. It's called Love Story, and it's Ryan Murphy's Love Story, JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette Kennedy. There are a lot of problematic things about this, let's just say. But I'm going to stick with the being John Malkovich aspect, the weird WTF stuff, versus I will have other videos that I really get into some of the issues surrounding titling this a love story, because it is more of a DA issue. It's not a healthy relationship. It's a toxic relationship. So that is called a love story. And it's not being ironic, it's being unironically called love story. That bothers me. But what I do want to talk about is the messing with the truth. So recently, Daryl Hannah came out and she was really upset because of the mischaracterization, not just of little aspects, but literally changing her personality. They do say like this is based on true stories, and some of the events and things have been changed and embellished, so uh it does say that in the series. But when you're dealing with someone who not only existed but is even still alive, people think that that's how Daryl Hannah acted. They're not looking at this. People don't watch things thinking, I am watching something that's fake and embellished. They believe what they're seeing is fact. It doesn't matter how many disclaimers you have. So I believe there really needs to be stricter rules around IP of actual real humans, historical IP and real human IP. I don't know how they're going to do that. I'm sure they're working on stuff with AI, but it needs to happen faster because it's already an issue just with shows like this, just creating shows about people. With AI coming in, it's going to be even more of an issue. So I'm wondering where I can look into what rules and regulations and laws are coming in surrounding the AI IP, especially as a producer, someone who produces content. This is not on my channel. I do it as like for clients. I produce their stuff. I don't really produce my videos. I do want to be aware of what is allowed, what isn't allowed. And I think we need to become more strict on how we use IP. There are things that are happening now that are becoming collective memory based on the JFK story, based on what actually happened, which there is truth that happened. And a lot of what's being shown on Love Story, the TV series, the Ryan Murphy TV series, is not truth. It is embellishment. Now, while I do agree that that's allowed and they do their disclaimers at the same time because of the issue of the collective memory of the whole, it's changing lives, it's changing history, and this is our historical context. We don't have the real history of these people, so this is what people are going to remember of these lives. Entertainment becomes collective memory, and that needs to be addressed, especially when we're dealing with historical and important concepts. Obviously, this is JFK Jr., but there are plenty of other, whether it's a documentary, because every documentary is biased and wants you to think a certain way, and I'm okay with that because people need to watch that. I just don't think people watch responsibly. So whose responsibility is this at this point? Is it for the person watching to be responsible for consuming responsibly, for consuming like a mature adult and looking into different sources and coming up with the truth based on a lot of different things, and even understanding that no matter how many sources you go, you may not fully ever know the truth, and having that maturity to accept and understand that? Can we really expect the lowest common denominator of people watching a TV show to understand that? Or do we start to put that onto the screenwriters? Do we start to put that onto the directors? Do we start to put that onto the creators? Do we start to put that onto the producers? Do we start to put that responsibility on the people who are creating misrepresentative content that are changing history, and they're just doing it for fun, they're doing it for entertainment, but the way that entertainment affects society nowadays, I feel like there are so many ethical implications happening that were not the case back in the day. And I believe integrity of facts used to be a thing. It's not anymore. There are so many layers to this. So I do wonder where the IP comes in of these sort of stories that are completely mischaracterizing not only humans that existed at one point in time that may not exist anymore and cannot stick up for themselves, but now they mischaracterize people who exist, who live and are alive right now. Like if you look at, what is it, Bad Vegan, I think is what it's called. It might have been called Bad Influencer. But there was one about vegan. It was Netflix, and it was, because I think Love Story is on Hulu, and it's not a documentary, obviously, but Netflix does this a lot with documentaries and basically makes up a whole story and manipulates everything to tell their point of view. I'm not opposed to having a point of view and trying to get it across. That's how you do as a storyteller. There's so much in there. You want someone to leave thinking something. When you watch something, and I'm going to get into The Bride at some point, The Bride has no plot. there's no end game besides a message, but at least they had a message, and we'll get into that message. It's very relevant to this channel, and when I was watching it, I was like, this can't even be made more perfect for a rant for my channel. Like, this was made for me. Felt like a joke. I felt like I was being punked. Another thing that I was noticing, though, which is why I was bringing all this up, I saw social media, and of course you're seeing people call it CBK because of course they have to make their little social media phrases. They were social media words. I'm going to get into this whole quiet luxury, CBK, like the social media buzzword thing, like these words that people create. So Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, now it's being called CBK, and there's a CBK style. Dress like CBK. It's like the new trend. It's ridiculous. So every girl is getting the headband that Carolyn wore and dressing like her. So you might not be in that world, but if you have to be in that world, because I do it for work, you will be bombarded by this. And there are CBK people, and this blew my mind. This one social media post was this girl, and this woman, excuse me, and she basically said, me trying to get my boyfriend to dress like JFK Jr. from the TV show. This girl wants to make her boyfriend look like JFK Jr. She's already dressed like CBK. So that in itself is annoying, but okay. Not JFK Jr., the human that existed in life. They don't even think of JFK Jr. as a real person. They just think of him as a TV character now. Not, this woman wasn't saying dress like JFK Jr., period, from the TV show. I don't really feel like I got into the exact, a lot of times in videos I try to find root cause and I try to find some sort of light at the end of the tunnel. I don't feel like I found that with this. That is what it is. Maybe I'm more annoyed by this than other people, but to me, as a person who needs to tell other people's stories, and I do it for podcasts and all of that, it is so important that it's your story and that there is some protection for that. With things like we just thought, there is no protection for those sort of things. We need to start protecting history in a different way than we used to. I don't know how accurate our history books are. But that's the point. We don't know how accurate anything is. So being aware of how inaccurate, because history is written by the victors. People who won, they're the ones who didn't burn all the other books, right? So it's hard to say what really happened in certain times. And I do believe we have a chance now to make changes and to start creating more effective history books, to more effective history that will last, and then to be able to create entertainment in a way that is entertaining but doesn't change how we believe something actually happened historically. Because if we're watching TV more than we're reading history books, then what we understand about history is going to be from what we see on television. It's going to be from what that biased producer, whatever that producer thinks, wants you to leave thinking. And that's just how production works. I don't hate them for it. I just think there needs to be more regulation and more teaching so that these people who are producing, including myself, begin creating things to protect history and humans and facts and truth. Because right now we have none of that. We have, if someone went back to look at what the truth is of today, they have very little to go on. They have a lot of random videos that all say different things. This video does not help truth. It does not help. So yeah, we need people, we need historians. And I wonder, because AI, you can just change one thing and that changes everything that ever existed in AI. You look at this is why the Berenstain Bears versus Berenstain Bears is a conspiracy, because we know it happens. You see movies all the time, like on Amazon, and for some reason they didn't like the original movie title, so they changed the title on Amazon. They changed the cover, they changed all of that, but then you start watching the movie and you're like, oh, Well, it shows, because they didn't change the movie, and so it shows the real title of the movie. So they try to change things like that already, and they do that with a lot of things. So they could do it for a Berenstain Bear book. I don't know why, but anyway. I should watch Being John Malkovich again. Let me know your thoughts.
Let's go.